Welcome back to Read This Next with Laura and Nicole from the Thunder Bay Public Library. This week we are doing a fun topic again. We're bringing back sci-fi, but we've narrowed it down a little bit with Laura's fun topic.
Okay, so how this came about is I was looking at, reading one of these particular books, and I was reading a review, and it had this phrase that I thought was really evocative: the oppressive intimacy of technology in modern lives. They said, like, that's what this book is about. And I was like, that's a great theme. Weirdly specific, perhaps. You would
That's
think
why we're calling it sci-fi.
yes, but when I started looking into it, I feel like all these titles really fit that very well, because they're all kind of examining different ways that they're either present or like near present future. Near future
Tomorrow.
Yes. And then just different ways that, like, technology that's very recognizable or slightly just beyond what we already have, how that connects into our lives in such intimate ways, and how does that change the way we relate to each other? Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it sounds cool. I'm interested to hear like what the different, because it could go so many different ways, and I'm instantly thinking about ones that we've covered in the past too, like that one with the doll, the toy
Yes. Yes.
had the
Little
eyes
Eyes.
on the cover. What was it?
Little Eyes by Samantha Schweben.
Good. I feel like that one would also probably suit this theme too.
It definitely would. It is on the list. There will be a little list on the show notes that says, like, other books that we've already covered that are also in this theme, because it is definitely one that's come up before, which is not surprising, right? With like the more
How
that
many
are like,
episodes?
yeah, that's that too, how many episodes we have, but also the more like the more privacy we give up as we invite these technology into our lives to that theoretically make things easier or simpler for us. Yeah, not surprising that that's going to be something that a lot of sci-fi writers are going to like dig onto.
Yeah. Do you have
Yeah,
a home assistant?
definitely not.
Yeah, me neither. Okay.
No, no, they
Didn't
kind of
want to
creep me
name
out a
it in
little.
case I don't know if we can name things, but there's a few. So
Yeah.
they're
Yes,
very fun though. Okay. I believe you're starting us off, so take
I
it away.
I will. And also, just because, I don't know, this is kind of one of my things. I think every book that I mention I've read. It's one of those episodes.
Wow.
It's one of those episodes, Nicole.
This means it's a 5-star episode because we know that all of these books are good recs.
Yeah. Okay. So the first book is called This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno. And I think it was actually, this is the one that had that line in the review. And I came across this first because I was looking for horror titles. So this does certainly fall under horror as well. So science fiction, near future, horror. Um, it's quite interesting. So here's the description of the book. It was Vera's idea to buy the Itza, clearly inspired by something that's currently available. The world's most advanced smart speaker. It didn't interest Thiago, but Vera thought it would be a bit of fun for them amidst all the strange occurrences happening in their new condo. Unfortunately, it made things worse. The cold spots and scratching in the walls were weird enough, but peculiar packages started showing up at their house. Who ordered industrial lie? Then there was the eerie... Fair enough. Then there was the eerie music at odd hours, Thiago waking up to Itza projecting light shows in an empty room. It was funny and strange right up until Vera was killed, and Thiago's world became unbearable. Pundits and politicians all looking to turn his wife's death into a symbol for their own agendas. A barrage of texts from her well-meaning friends about letting go and moving on. Waking to the sound of Itza talking softly to someone in the living room. The only thing left to do is to get far away from Chicago, away from everything and everyone. A secluded cabin in Colorado seemed like the perfect place to hole up with his crushing grief. But soon, Thiago realizes there is no escape, not from his guilt, not from his simmering rage, and not from the evil hunting him, feeding on his grief, determined to make its way into this world. A bold original horror novel about grief, loneliness, and the oppressive intimacy of technology.
Wow.
Yeah. It
Oh,
it does, like, I don't want to mislead you that the smart speaker is like a something that follows through the entire story. Like he reaches a certain point, which makes a lot of sense. You know, like in horror movies when you're like, why are they making this silly decision? There's a point where he is like, I'm going to destroy this. And I think he runs it over with his car. And you're like,
Good
yes,
for him.
that's what you should do with like what appears to be a haunted piece of technology. It's not like one of those people who are just like, oh, it's a coincidence. He does acknowledge that. But unfortunately, there's other ways that whatever the Itza was channeling continues to follow him as he goes on. It does take a real turn into like supernatural as well. So I guess I'd have to say like it's not solely strictly sci-fi, because there are definitely like supernatural elements.
It's like the supernatural manipulating your sci-fi tech.
Yes. Yes. And I really think, I mean, as a novel about someone dealing with grief, I also feel it's very well done in that way. Like,
Okay. So the
which
people
is,
element was good too.
yeah, yeah. There were some pretty vile images. Nothing super gory, but I do have to put a little content warning for a dog who
Oh,
perhaps, you know, maybe things don't go that well for the dog.
good to know.
Just putting that out there.
That's good to
Yes. Anyway, that is our first one.
love it. Okay, we're off to a good start. This next one is called A Woman Alone by Nina Lauren. A year after a brutal home invasion that left her traumatized, Cecilia, along with her husband and their 3-year-old daughter, move into a new house with a complex security system that's supposed to make her feel safe. But reality proves different as strange things begin to happen at home, and the security system reveals that the house had a prior occupant, Lydia. On her quest to discover the fate of the mysterious Lydia, Cecilia uncovers metaphorical skeletons in the closet, and she realizes that no one's secrets are safe, including her own. Ooh, that one sounds like it would be about, like, it's recording them somehow, and they're, like, she's hearing or seeing things about the old person?
Yeah, I this one I have not read. So
Oh,
I'm not sure. It's only the ones that the ones I'm
the
going to
ones
talk
that
about
you're
I've read.
talking about.
Yeah. But this one sounds good too. And like the kind of smart house thing, like there's so much possibility for creepiness there, right? Like lights, heating, locked doors, just
Recording, what is it
yeah,
not?
yes, recording, playing things back. Like there's so many pieces of your day to day that could all be wrapped up in the technology. And if it is malevolent in some way or has been programmed to be malevolent,
Yeah.
yeah, I shouldn't anthropomorphize technology too much. Then yes. Yeah, so that one sounds good too.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one. Okay, so this one is a very different kind of a way that we've invited technology into our lives. So this one is actually it's about influencers,
Okay.
but yeah, but as opposed to like, I know there's been some different books about like, the adult influencer who goes missing or whatever. This one is about like a family and a child influencer,
Oh, okay.
which are always like, especially in my opinion, distasteful. Where it seems like if that was applicable to child labor laws, they would not be having this much content. But because it's it's a totally unregulated industry, families can just exploit their children as much as they like, unfortunately. But so this one is about a young person. I think she's maybe just a teenager, who has a very popular YouTube channel. So she's a popular personality and named Chloe Cates. The book is called Chloe Cates is Missing by Mandy McHugh. So, the disappearance of a young internet celebrity ignites a firestorm of speculation. Okay, so 13. She's disappeared. No one knows where she's gone, least of all her ruthless momager, Jennifer Scarborough. And yes, very clearly inspired by the like Kris Kardashian,
Oh,
Kris Jenner. Yeah, like the moms who are just like always in the background. Oh, you're doing great, sweetie.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no one knows where she's gone, who spent much of her daughter's young life crafting a child celebrity persona that's finally beginning to pay off. And in Chloe's absence, the faux fairy tale world that supported that persona begins to fracture, revealing secrets capable of reducing the highly dysfunctional Scarborough family to rubble. Anxious to find her daughter and preserve the life she's worked so hard to build, Jennifer turns to social media for help. But the hearsay of false claims and salacious suspicions only multiply. As the search becomes as sensational as Chloe's series, missing persons detective Emelina Stone steps in, only to realize she has a connection to this case herself. Will she be able to stay objective and cut through the rumors to find the truth before it's too late? Told from multiple points of view, including Jennifer, Emelina, oh my goodness, and pages from Chloe's lost diary. It's a suspenseful novel of a child pushed to the brink and the troubled family that desperately needs her back.
Oh,
That description is more sympathetic to the family than the book is.
yeah.
Frankly, the book's pretty clear-eyed about how they're exploiting her. It's like when the mom reaches out to social media, like the police are like, don't do that. Don't put anything on social media about your child missing. But she immediately is like, my precious baby's missing. Can anyone help me find them? And the police are like, that's not helping. But it's publicity. So yeah, it feels very, I don't know enough about the world, that particular world to say for sure. But as an outsider, it feels very accurate to how stuff
You would
would play
imagine
out,
it to be?
how
Yeah.
I would imagine it to be, and the kind of different pressures. The like the stage mom is a stereotype through the ages, and she's a real shining example of that.
It also sounds like with the current, like when current cases come up in the real world and um they're internet famous or whatever, like it seems like it's kind of commenting on that behavior from the public as well, which is very
Yeah,
current.
yes, that kind of parasocial like desire of social media to be like, we'll solve the mystery,
Yeah.
and whether or not that's actually going to be a benefit to the case, so they kind of insert themselves in anyway. Yeah, and it does do a fair bit with like both with the young person and then also with what's happening with the parent, like it does, and the connection between the parent and the detective. It gets quite twisty. There's some twists and turns in that one.
Cool. Love it. All right. Scroll down, scroll down. Ooh, I like the cover of this one.
I know, it's delightful.
It is.
I thought that we talked about it before, but then I couldn't find it anywhere, and I was like, maybe I've just been looking at it before. So I think it is new to the show. I hope.
I think it is. I don't recognize the cover.
Okay, very
So it's
good.
called No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood. That is screaming Tumblr. Why is no one talking about this? No one is aware of everything at all times, guys. Okay. A book that asks, is there life after the internet? Couldn't tell you. As this urgent, genre-defying book opens, a woman who has recently been elevated to prominence for her social media posts travels around the world to meet her adoring fans. She's overwhelmed by navigating the new language and etiquette of what she terms the portal, where she grapples with an unshakable conviction that a vast chorus of voices is now dictating her thoughts. When existential threats, from climate change and economic precariousness to the rise of an unnamed dictator and an epidemic of loneliness, begin to loom, She posts her way deeper into the portal's void. An avalanche of images, details, and references accumulate to form a landscape that is post sense, post irony, post everything. Are we in hell? The people of the portal ask themselves. Are we just going to keep doing this until we die? What a description. Okay. Suddenly, two texts from her mother pierce the fray. Something has gone wrong, and how soon can you get here? As real life and its stakes collide with the increasingly absurd antics of the portal, the woman confronts a world that seems to contain both an abundance of proof that there is goodness, empathy, and justice in the universe, and a deluge of evidence to the contrary. Ooh, okay. There's a lot going on there.
There's a lot going on there. So if the last one was looking at kind of the intimacy of inviting strangers into our lives through these YouTube channels and videos and the relationships we feel we develop with them, this one is very much about living inside social media ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no idea how that, like, when, and this is just a you have to read the book kind of thing, but I'm curious how that works. Like in Ready Player One, like you put on a headset, but they're not making it sound like she's wearing a headset, so I want to know how it happens.
Yes. Yeah. It sounds like an interesting one. And clearly, like some of the ones are that we've talked about already have been more like straightforward thrillers, like the Chloe Cates one is, and the Woman Alone one. Those are more like straightforward thrillers, but this one is more experimental and literary read.
Yeah, more existential horror.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Next one, weird cover.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I'm simultaneously like I think it's cool, but I'm also like, what's going on?
What's going on? That's the question. Okay, this is another one that falls into the horror the horror side of things, and is another one that's focused on the way we present ourselves online and the relationships we build to others when we only know them like exclusively through social media. So the book's called A Touch of Jen. It's by Beth Morgan. Remy and Alicia, a couple of insecure service workers, are not particularly happy together, but they are bound by a shared obsession with Jen, a beautiful former co-worker of Remy's who now seems to be following her bliss as a globe-trotting jewelry designer. In and outside the bedroom, Remy and Alicia's entire relationship revolves around fantasies of Jen, whose every Instagram caption, outfit, and new age mantra they know by heart. It is certainly a strange hobby for a couple to have together.
Absolutely.
But, some people follow sports teams. These two follow this woman's Instagram page.
I love that. Okay.
I mean, and the thing is that they both do it together. Like, it's not like one of them is obsessed with it and the other one's like, I don't understand. They're both like kind of obsessed with her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Feeding off each other. Okay. So imagine their confused excitement when they run into Jen in the flesh, and she invites them on a surfing trip to the Hamptons with her wealthy boyfriend in their group. Once there, Remy and Alicia try a little too hard to fit into Jen's exalted social circle, but violent desire and class resentment bubble beneath the surface of this beachside paradise, threatening to erupt. As small disturbances escalate into outright horror, Remy and Alicia tumble into an uncanny alternate reality, one shaped by their most unspeakable, deviant, and intoxicating fantasies. Is this what self-actualization looks like? Part millennial social comedy, part psychedelic horror. It does, like, if you listen to that and you have like a little bit shades of like the single white female kind of archetype where, you get a new roommate who somehow he manages to dye their hair the same color and wear all your clothes, and now they're trying to steal your boyfriend, like taking your life sort of thing. It's more it's more strange than that. It's what I want to say.
Hard to get more strange than that.
It is more strange than that.
Wow.
There's it does take a I guess I don't want to spoil it, but it leaves regular day-to-day life as the story goes on. There's more elements introduced than would be present in the actual real world. Like sort of oblique, but
well, no spoilers, so it's great. That sounds great. Could I read that one? Do you think I'd be like, was it like scary kind of, or what do you think?
At the end, there's some parts that are kind of scary, but I don't know that some of it is just a fair bit of it is just weird, like how do people and it's not like it's not unheard of. Certainly, I feel like there's lots of people who have these parasocial relationships with celebrities or micro celebrities where they're just like obsessed with everything going on with their lives. And I've never been that kind of person. So it was interesting to read about their relationship, especially it's like the two of them, but it's almost like a triad. She doesn't know it, but she's part of their relationship.
It's a shared hobby.
It's a shared hobby, and they kind of like interact with each other through this prism of Jen, of what they perceive her to be. And then when that runs up against them seeing her in real life, like it's an interesting exploration.
Sounds neat. This is, I mean, I know oftentimes it'll be like, I want to know what happens there, but this is the first one that might legitimately make me pick up the book because it's so
it's an odd
fascinating.
one.
Yeah. Huh. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Next one's yours.
One's mine. This is Never Coming Home by Kate Williams. A Vacation to Die For. Okay. Everyone knows Unknown Island, capital U, capital I. It's the world's most exclusive destination. Think white sandy beaches, turquoise seas, and luxury accommodations. Plus, it's invite only. No one over 21 allowed, and no one over 21 allowed. Okay. That seems like a low age, but
tiny babies.
yeah, like okay, anyways. And it's absolutely free. Who wouldn't want to go? After launching with a show-stopping viral marketing campaign, the whole world is watching as the mysterious resort opens its doors to the first 10. The 10 elite influencers specifically chosen to be the first to experience everything Unknown Island has to offer. You know them. There's the gamer, the beauty blogger, the rich girl, the superstar, the junior politician, the environmentalist, DJ, the CEO, the chef, and the athlete. What they don't know is that they weren't invited to Unknown Island for their following. They were invited for their secrets. Everyone is hiding a deadly one. And it looks like someone's decided it's payback time. Unknown Island isn't a vacation, it's a trap, and it's beginning to look like the first 10, no matter how influential, are never coming home. Closed circle mystery?
I know.
Wow. Wow. Very what's the beauty queens, but more Hillary.
Yeah. And it's very similar. I'll grab the title of one we did before where it was a bunch of people who'd been invited to the funeral of a rich guy on an island. That one, which was like explicitly an Agatha Christie homage. I'm not sure if this one is too, but it certainly sounds like it could be.
Yeah.
So once again, looking at all the ways that the different like relationships that the way they present themselves. And it's supposed to kind of have Fry Fest vibes.
Fire. Fry. Fire Fest.
If you're not familiar, it was like a heavily hyped event that then when it actually happened, it was like just
cheese
kind of
sandwiches.
It was a big old mess, and it played out on like online in real time, everyone's disappointment and yes, the humor of how much it under delivered on what it promised.
Like no accommodations, no food, no water, no performers, like just and they paid huge money to go.
There's two very interesting documentaries about it. Yes, but yeah, so that is that one.
Cool. I love that.
So our next one is this one is a real A real thinker.
Okay.
I sound like I'm being sarcastic, but I'm not. It's
I like
called,
thunder.
yeah, it's called We Had to Remove This Post. It's by Hannah Bervowitz, translated by Emma Ralt. I believe it is actually I think I want to say it's a Dutch author.
Okay.
So it's about a group of young colleagues who work as social media content moderators. And I don't know if you've read any articles about them before, but I certainly have, about how very often, like, the people that they have watching videos on YouTube or TikTok or going through images are often underpaid and have very high quotas. So they're like moving really fastly through content. What they have to look at is often incredibly disturbing because they're the filter, right? So just pretty much mind-numbingly horrible work. Unfortunately, that not in this particular book, but like I just read an article about how TikTok outsources it to countries where there's less opportunities, and so people are willing to do this terrible job. Anyway, this particular one, it's about a group of young colleagues who are working as social media content monitors. And they convince themselves they're in control until the violence strikes closer to home. Kaylee needs money, so that's why she takes the job as a content moderator for the social media platform whose name she isn't allowed to mention. Her job, reviewing offensive videos and pictures, rants and conspiracy theories, and deciding which need to be removed. It's grueling work. Kaylee and her colleagues spend all day watching horrors and hate on their screens, evaluating them with the platform's ever-changing terms of service, while a supervisor sits behind them, timing and scoring their assessments. Yet Kaylee finds a group of friends, even a new love, and somehow the job starts to feel okay. But when her colleagues begin to break down, when Sigrid, her new girlfriend, grows increasingly distant and fragile, when her friends start espousing the very conspiracy theories they're meant to be evaluating, Kaylee begins to wonder if the job may be too much for them. She's still totally fine, though. Or is she?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's kind of about how, well, it really forces you to think about, that there's people on the other side of like making these sort of decisions. Like often there's like a level of AI, right? But to actually parse those things, it is cheaper and easier to have people actually do that work. And it is pretty fairly graphic, just because of some of the descriptions of what these people are watching and how they have to gauge it, like, well, if it's an accident, then if it's an accident and then there's a talk about it afterwards and you could argue it's educational, then maybe it's okay, but if it's just this, either way, it's still a horrifying video, right? It's yeah. And then it kind of digs into how seeing that kind of thing day after day can start to impact what you think is normal or what you think is okay. So yeah, some of her colleagues start falling for like flat earth conspiracies and or just like increasing like anti-Semitism from lots of conspiracy theories about that they keep being exposed to. And she very firmly believes that she is fine. But the more you go into the story, the clearer it becomes to the reader that she's an unreliable narrator. And the way that she's describing things are not necessarily accurate at all. Yeah. So there's no, this is not one where there's any supernatural element at all. It's just the horror of people.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
it sounds like how they say that the algorithm works to create a lot of like it sends you down a rabbit hole whether you like it or not, kind of.
Yeah.
It sounds like these people are being forced down the rabbit hole like because of their job, which is
Yeah.
something I wouldn't have considered affecting people, which I think is the point of the book.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
wow.
And also the speed, like I hadn't, again, wouldn't have really thought about this as an element, but one of the things that's really common in these sorts of jobs, like the book includes it as a part of it, but a lot of the way the job is described is based on tons and tons of interviews that have been done with people who work for these companies, right, and actually have these jobs. And a big piece of it is the pace is just unrelenting. Like you have to have viewed this many clips in this time or else you don't get a bonus, or whatever it might be, like just an just an absolute avalanche of content.
And it's nonstop. Like it's no
It's
end.
nonstop, and it's all horrifying in different ways, like
Wow.
yeah, but interesting. And I'll link to a couple of like real life examples of articles that I've read
Sure.
that kind of cover this topic if you're interested at all. It's interesting to read these like real stories of people who've had this kind of job, and then this fictionalized version which I think does a very good job of exploring what kind of consequences it could have.
That's really, really neat. Hmm. Okay.
Yes,
We
I
have,
think so.
yeah, we've got, I think, two more here. So I'll
I
move
do.
on to The Candy House by Jennifer Egan.
This is probably the biggest name book
Oh,
on this list.
also wrote A Visit from the Goon Squad.
Yeah.
Okay. It's 2010. Staggeringly successful and brilliant tech entrepreneur Bix Booten is desperate for a new idea. He's 40 with 4 kids and restless when he stumbles into a conversation with mostly Colombian professors, one of whom is experimenting with downloading or externalizing memory. Within a decade, Bix's new technology, Own Your Own Conscience, that's what, oh no, Own Your Own, no, Own Your Unconscious, yes, that allows you to access every memory you've ever had and to share every memory in exchange for access to the memories of others, has seduced multitudes, but not everyone. In spellbindingly linked narratives, Egan spells out the consequences of Own Your Unconscious through the lives of multiple characters whose paths intersect over several decades. Egan introduces these characters in an astonishing array of styles, from omniscient to first person plural to a duet of voices, an epistolary chapter, a chapter of tweets. Whoa! That's cool. In the world
Yeah.
of Egan's spectacular imagination, there are counters who track and exploit desires, and there are eluders who understand the price of taking a bite in the candy house, of the candy house. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know what to say about that. Like, it felt like a very good description of it.
Yes. And she like that the book The Visit from the the Goon Squad won the Pulitzer, like huge title. And I think this might be her first one since then. It does say like on the cover like that this is number 2, but there's no indication I've come across that you have to necessarily have read the first one. I
Okay,
haven't. But I will read this one. It's on the list.
interesting. Hmm. Yeah, okay.
Okay. Our last one is another one that I read.
Yay!
And this one is about this one is a near future thing where it's about a piece of technology, sort of like with the last one, which was that your unconscious doesn't actually exist. This one is about a machine that doesn't actually exist, but feels like it could soon enough. So it's called Tell the Machine Goodnight by Katie Williams. Pearl's job is to make people happy. Every day, she provides customers with personalized recommendations for greater contentment. She's good at her job, her office manager tells her, and successful. But how does one measure an emotional? An emotion. Gracious. Okay. Meanwhile, there's Pearl's teenage son, Rhett. A sensitive kid who has forged an unconventional path through adolescence, Rhett seems to find greater satisfaction in being unhappy. The very rejection of joy is his own kind of pursuit of happiness. As his mother, Pearl wants nothing more than to help Rhett, but is it for his sake or for hers? Certainly, it would make Pearl happier. Regardless, her son is the one person whose emotional life does not fall under the parameters of her job, not as a happiness technician and not as mother either. So it's told in alternating voices, and the character of Pearl like doesn't really make it clear in that, but her job is literally a machine, and people do like a little cheek swab and then put in their DNA, and the machine processes it, and then it gives them, I think it's like 3 or 5 suggestions for greater contentment.
Oh,
And yes, that are personalized. So for some people it might be like, you know, join a club, start listening to music, stop but then there's ones that are more less innocuous than that. One's like divorce your wife, cut off your mother. Cut off the tip of your finger.
What?
Yeah. Yes. And the people can then choose, of course, if they want to follow those directives or not. It's up to them. No one's forcing them. But the machine gives these directions, and within the world of this book, it's generally right. Like if people actually do those things, then they end up feeling happier, more content with their lives.
Wild. Okay.
Yes. So we have her and this machine, and then she's so torn up by her very unhappy son, and he is not at all interested in in trying out the machine. No, thank you. He will not be doing that. Yeah, and it just kind of follows along with her life, and then also his journey. And he's like an average young person, and talks about social media. There's a bit about like new designer drugs that have come into the world. There's an incident with a girl he goes to high school with who's doused with this drug that turns you into a zombie temporarily, where it's basically, it sounds like Rufinol, like knocks you out. You take direction well. But so there's this kind of, it's very like near future. And then there's this machine that promises happiness. And then how does that impact? How do you live your life if you know there is this thing out here that would presumably tell you how to be happier?
Yeah.
Do you want that information? Do you not?
Very much like the idea of knowing your fate.
Right? And what if it is a bad thing?
Yeah. Like
that would make you happy.
Well,
like that's at least to yourself. What if it's something that would damage others?
Oh, like break that car.
Or worse than that, right? Like
murder
someone, whatever. Yeah. So the machine, if it's something that is like has been flagged as dangerous or whatever, it'll just do like a bunch of like it'll start out so you don't know what it actually was. So when Pearl, like it's an invasion, but when she goes ahead and can't stop herself from running the report on Rhett, her son, because she wants to know how she can make him happy, and it comes up with one of those.
Oh no.
So she's trying to figure out like what terrible thing would make him happy. Yeah. And at the same time, where we spend time in Rhett's mind, where like he seems like a perfectly normal kid. There's no sense that there's, that he has some dark desires.
Yeah.
It's a interesting book. It's not very, I would say it reads more as, it doesn't read very science fiction-y. Like if you're not a person who reads a lot of science fiction, it reads more like everyday problems, this mother and son, and then, her ex and her relationship with her ex. Like there's just very much like regular life stuff going on. And then there's this backdrop of there's this machine that's impacting the decisions everyone's making.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lots of questions that would come up from that, like actually existing.
No kidding. Yeah. Yeah. So basically we've brought you a bunch of Black Mirror episodes.
Yeah. It's just like full-length movie Black Mirror episodes.
Yes. If you're not familiar, that's a TV show that is basically about the dangers of technology.
Yeah.
Yes. Fits very well, this theme.
It does. Yeah. Well, I guess on that note, we'll wrap it up. That was really good. Like a lot of those sound really cool. Okay. Do we have anything else to add?
No, just check out the show notes for, information about these. And of course, ones we've talked about before, because there does seem to be, there's a couple ones that kind of fall under the same heading, unsurprisingly.
Yeah. Well, that being said, you've mentioned go check out the show notes. It's www.tbplofftheshelf.com. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow us on all the things. We're at tbaypl across the board. And we will see you all in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.